Okay, so good evening, everyone. So, like he mentioned, like I'm John. I work at the intersection of neuroscience and signal processing. So, the talk which I'll be presenting the next month would be different from what our talks will be hearing in general. So, in general, my research interest lies in understanding like how reading changes your brain perception. Like we all know that the language is a very recent cultural invention. The language is very but the written part of the language is a very recent cultural invention. It has not been existed before. Before we like recite the speech or like transmit using the vocal channels, but now we like write down the information that we have. So what happens when you learn to read? Like, so reading is a visual aspect of the language. So I'm looking from the language from a visual point of view to understand what happens. So, like if you look at the language, so the language in the brain is distributed not only in the specific region, but it's a network throughout the brain. So if this is a human brain, then you have visual cortex over there, which is known to be involved in processing the visual information. And then there's a part of the brain which is known as visual word form area, which gets only activated or which forms when you learn to read. So this area is not present for illiterates. And this area is formed only when you learn to read. And apart from this, the vision part of the language, we have some of the other areas which are popularly known as Wernicke's areas and the Broca's areas. So the Wernicke's is for comprehending the language, so it's more of auditory processing, and the Broca's, which is like speech production. So it's again like we are producing the sound. So all these different areas they interact to generate and understand the language that we know. So, but in this particular talk, I'll be focusing only on the visual part of the talk and understanding what happens in this particular visual word form area. So this would be the summary of my talk. Like I'll in general briefly give you an overview of what is the language processing in the brain. What happens like people who are blind, what happens for them? Like do they form the visual word form area when they learn to read the Braille language? And since many of the techniques would involve this brain imaging techniques, so since many of you won't know about that, I'll give you a very basic introduction to the neuroimaging. And then more specifically, I'll focus on this particular paper. So like this paper talks about like how is the sentence being processed. So when you have a sentence, you read from left to right, but the sentence, it has a different structure. So does the brain process from in a sequential manner, or does it have some structure that it processes? So we'll focus on this paper more. Thanks.